Hello everyone, welcome my YouTube channel. Ukraine attacks Russia's hold on southern city of Kherson. Ukrainian forces attacked Russia's hold on the southern city of Kherson on Thursday while fighting intensified in the country's east. The battles came amid reports that Moscow-appointed authorities in the city have abandoned it, joining tens of thousands of residents who fled to other Russia-held areas. Ukrainian forces were surrounding Kherson from the west and attacking Russia's foothold on the west bank of the Dnieper River, which divides the region and the country. As the battles unfolded, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that Moscow has no intention to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine. "We see no need for that," Mr. Putin said at a conference of international foreign policy experts. "There is no point in that, neither political nor military." The Russian leader also sought to cast the conflict as part of efforts by the West to secure global domination. He accused the US and its allies of trying to dictate their terms to other nations in a dangerous and bloody domination game. Meanwhile, Russia warned that Moscow could target Western commercial satellites used for military purposes in support of Ukraine, and a foreign ministry spokeswoman accused the United States of pursuing thoughtless and mad escalation. Spokeswoman Maria Zakharova argued that Washington should take an approach more like it did during the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, when the Cold War superpowers stepped back from the brink of nuclear confrontation. The more the US is drawn into supporting the Kyiv regime on the battlefield, the more they risk provoking a direct military confrontation between the biggest nuclear powers fraught with catastrophic consequences, Ms. Zakharova said. Ukraine has pushed ahead with an offensive to reclaim the Kherson region and its capital of the same name, which Russian forces captured during the first days of a war now in its 9th month. More than 70,000 residents from the Kherson city area have evacuated in recent days, the region's Kremlin-installed governor, Vladimir Saldo, said on Thursday. Members of the Russia-backed regional administration also fled, the deputy governor, Kirill Stremisov, said. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky described reports of Russian troops' possible withdrawal from the city as disinformation. "I don't see them fleeing from Kherson," Mr. Zelensky said in an interview with Italy's Corriere della Sera newspaper. "This is an information attack, so that we go there, transfer troops from other dangerous directions there." Mr. Zelensky also dismissed as theater recent attempts by local Kremlin-backed officials to persuade the city's civilian residents to relocate deeper into Russian-held territory ahead of the Ukrainian advance. "Their most trained soldiers are in position. We see this and do not believe them," Mr. Zelensky said. In eastern Ukraine, Russian forces continued to bombard the city of Bakhmut in the Donetsk region, making slow gains toward the center. The deputy head of Russia's delegation at a UN arms control panel, Konstantin Vorontsov, described the use of US and other Western commercial satellites for military purposes during the fighting as extremely dangerous. The quasi-civilian infrastructure could be a legitimate target for a retaliatory strike, Mr. Vorontsov warned. As they have all month, Russian forces carried out attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, which have caused increasing worry ahead of winter. A Russian drone attack early on Thursday hit an energy facility near the capital of Kyiv, causing a fire, said Kyiv Regional Governor Oleksiy Kulyba. He said the latest attacks inflicted very serious damage. "The Russians are using drones and missiles to destroy Ukraine's energy system ahead of the winter and terrorize civilians," Mr. Kulyba said in televised remarks. Mr. Kulyba announced new rolling blackouts and urged consumers to save power. He said authorities were still pondering how to restore power. Kyrylo Tymoshenko, deputy head of Ukraine's presidential office, said rolling blackouts would also be introduced in the neighboring Chernihiv, Cherkasy and Zhytomyr regions. Mr. Zelensky has said that Russian attacks have already destroyed 30% of the country's energy infrastructure. In a likely response to Russia's attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure, a power plant was attacked just outside Sevastopol, a port in the Russian-annexed region of Crimea. The plant suffered minor damage in a drone attack, according to city leader Mikhail Razvazhiev. He said electricity supplies were uninterrupted. Crimea, a region slightly larger than Sicily, was annexed by Russia from Ukraine in 2014. It has faced drone attacks and explosions amid the fighting in Ukraine. In a major setback for Russia, a powerful truck bomb blew up a section of a strategic bridge linking Crimea to Russia's mainland on October 8. A senior Ukrainian military officer accused Russia of planning to stage explosions at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant and blamed them on Ukraine in a false flag attack. General Alexei Gromov, the chief of the main operational department of the Ukrainian military's general staff, pointed to Moscow's repeated unfounded allegations that Ukraine was plotting to detonate a radioactive dirty bomb as a possible signal that Moscow was planning explosions at the plant, Europe's largest nuclear power station. Russia took control of the Zaporizhzhia plant in the opening days of the invasion. Russia and Ukraine have accused each other of attacking the plant, which had its reactors shut down following continuous shelling. General Gromov also charged on Thursday that Russian forces may have set off explosions at residential buildings in the city of Kherson before retreating from the city. Putin says, "No need for using nuclear weapons in Ukraine." Russian President Vladimir Putin on Thursday denied having any intentions of using nuclear weapons in Ukraine but described the conflict there as part of alleged efforts by the West to secure its global domination, which he insisted are doomed to fail. Speaking at a conference of international foreign policy experts, Putin said it's pointless for Russia to strike Ukraine with nuclear weapons. "We see no need for that," Putin said. "There is no point in that, neither political nor military." Putin said an earlier warning of his readiness to use all means available to protect Russia didn't amount to nuclear saber rattling but was merely a response to Western statements about their possible use of nuclear weapons. He particularly mentioned Liz Truss saying in August that she would be ready to use nuclear weapons if she became Britain's prime minister, a remark which he said worried the Kremlin. "What were we supposed to think?" Putin said. "We saw that as a coordinated position, an attempt to blackmail us." Without offering evidence, the Russian leader repeated Moscow's unproven allegation that Ukraine was plotting a false flag attack involving a radioactive dirty bomb it would try to pin on Russia. Ukraine has strongly rejected the claim, and its Western allies have dismissed it as transparently false. Ukraine argued Russia might be making the unfounded allegation to serve as a cover for its own possible plot to detonate a dirty bomb. Putin said he personally ordered Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu to call his foreign counterparts to tell them about the purported plot. He maintained that Russia knows the Ukrainian facilities working on the project. Putin claimed, still without citing any proof, that Kyiv's plan was to rig a missile with radioactive waste and to characterize its explosion as a Russian nuclear strike in an effort to isolate Russia in the global arena. He mocked the allegations by Ukraine and the West that Russia was firing on the territory of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in southern Ukraine as ravings. Russian troops have occupied the plant, Europe's largest, since the early days of the conflict, and Moscow has accused Ukraine of continuously shelling it. In a long speech full of diatribes against the United States and its allies, Putin accused the US and its allies of trying to dictate their terms to other nations in a dangerous, bloody and dirty domination game. Putin, who sent his troops into Ukraine on February 24, has cast Western support for Ukraine as part of broad efforts by Washington and its allies to enforce its will upon others through what they call a rules-based world order. He argued that the world has reached a turning point, when the West is no longer able to dictate its will to the humankind but still tries to do it, and the majority of nations no longer want to tolerate it. Good day to everyone.